Thank you. I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. I do have several questions, so if I could just ask if we could be brief and direct and straightforward in our responses, because I would like to try to get through all of them today. General Nakasone has stated that if a nation state decided to attack our critical infrastructure, I would say that's above the threshold level of war. And in the testimonies that was prepared, it refers to China's cyber warfare against the U.S. as a form of terrorism. And Mr. Evanina, you said today it was an existential threat, in your words. So in the face of this terrorism, Mr. Evanina notes there's little deterrence also. So my first question to you, Mr. Evanina, if these CCP-driven hacking campaigns are a form of war on terrorism, are we deterring China from conducting them?
Thanks for the question, Chairwoman Mace. If we are deterring it, I'm not aware of that. From an intel perspective and a law enforcement perspective and a cyber perspective, what they are doing to us is on the border of...
Why not? Why aren't we deterring?
You would have to ask the policymakers in that pace, but I do believe in the same, as they're preparing for battle, as we heard, and our critical infrastructure, I don't think it's reasonable for the minimum standards to ask companies to defend against nation-state threat actors and their proxies. I think it's a big task for them to do, and I think you as government should take more of a hand in defeating and deterring the Chinese Communist Party in our infrastructure.
Is it safe to say this administration doesn't have a strategy for deterrence?
I'm not aware what the current strategy is.
Okay. Okay, so my next questions will be for Mr. Evanina and Mr. Joyce. Do we know how many of America's critical computer systems have been infiltrated via the Volt Typhoon hacking campaign? Do we know?
I'm not aware.
Mr. Joyce?
I do not have that information, no.
Okay, so if it's achieving its goal of gaining undetected system access, how would we know?
So, Madam Chairwoman, I believe the combination of intelligence, right, that revealed this campaign, as well as the capabilities of the U.S. cybersecurity industry, has the ability to find and defeat some of these activities. But it's going to take a combination of both the public efforts, the private efforts, as well as the targeted entities have to remove some of their outdated legacy IT to be safe.
Debate that's been going on for the better part of 30 years, probably. Mr. Joyce, do we know how much money the CCP invests in cyber warfare?
I do not.
Mr. Evanina, do you know?
I do not.
Do we know what kind of manpower they throw into these efforts? We heard what FBI Director Wray said recently, 50-to-1 in terms of comparing it to FBI analysts, but do we know what kind of manpower they have?
I think that's a conservative estimate by Director Wray, but I also would include in that the cyber criminal actors and their proxies that are supported by the MSS and the PLA should be included in that number as well.
Okay, AI and quantum computing are powerful new tools in the arsenal of both hackers and defenders in cyberspace. How much does defense of critical U.S. computer system hinge on our ability to maintain and build upon our edge in AI over China? Either of you?
So I believe that AI is actually going to advantage the defense much more than the offense, especially in the near term. The ability to look at large scales of data to understand the tradecraft that might go undetected by human analysts is rapidly increasing by some of the innovations. So I do believe that's our advantage today.
Mr. Carmichael, I have a minute left. Your testimony states that Mandiant, you helped identify solar winds and the Colonial Pipeline disruption in 2021. Would you say China's Volt Typhoon campaign is designed to make even these major hacks pale in comparison?
So far, we've only seen intrusion operations that were very hard to detect, that were orchestrated by Volt Typhoon, plus many other threat actors emanating from China. We don't yet know what they might do, but we could tell you the capability and the access that they have is very significant, and they could certainly do anything similar to what happened to Colonial Pipeline, or even much worse, with the access that we know that they have.
And how could we respond to a slew of disruptions to critical operators if all this is happening all at once, if they did something all at once?
It would be very difficult to respond to. There's a finite amount of security talent and investigators and incident responders that could help respond to security events. And so if there were a cascading set of security attacks against organizations, it would be incredibly difficult to respond to it.
All right, thank you, and I'll now.
Madam Chair,